Dear brothers and sisters, hope is not just a matter of faith, nor is it an abstract concept. Hope is something that we construct, something that we realize. And the way to construct it and realize it embarks from Iman, in our case, as people of faith, as Muslims. It embarks from our Iman, it's founded on our Iman. And then through strategizing, planning, commitment, and execution. It is a constant struggle, not an illusion. A constant struggle because challenges and obstacles are given in our lives. It's not something that we choose, right? From the moment we're born, that's when the cycle of life starts, and the cycle of life is defined by these constant struggles, challenges, obstacles, hardships, and how we respond to them, how we overcome, how we address them, right? That's what life is about. يا أيها الإنسان إنك كادح إلى ربك كدحا فملاقيه. That's the constant struggle in this life. As Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, as our human experience also teach us. So when we talk about hope, we're talking about this constant struggle, and we're not talking about illusions. Illusions meaning that where people think that things will just change, or things will be addressed, challenges will be remedied, will be mitigated just because we think that they will be mitigated. The Quran, therefore, the Quran distinguishes between two forms of hope. The first form is the real and legitimate hope, and the second one is a delusionary and false one. The delusionary and false one is addressed in an ayah where Allah tells us, ذَرْهُمْ يَأْكُلُوا وَيَتَمَتَّعُوا وَيُلْهِهِمُ الْأَمَلُ فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. Let them eat and enjoy themselves and be diverted by false hope, for they are going to know. Who are those? Those who subscribe to what? To this notion that things are going to change on their own, or those who subscribe to their self-perceived Iman, which is a shallow Iman, a fake Iman, that Allah is going to grant me rahmah, Allah is going to grant me paradise just because I'm hoping, I'm maintaining my hope, my faith in Him. And you hear so many people say, I'm going to enter Jannah no matter what. Yes, I don't pray. Yes, I don't pay zakah. Yes, I'm not good with people. But I have a kind heart. I have this, I'm kind. I have a firm Iman. Allah is going to grant me Jannah because I have this great Iman. Yes, you pray. Yes, you give your zakah. But you know what? Still, Allah will judge me by what is in my heart. Is that what Iman is? That's not what Iman is. There you always find that association, that correlation between Iman and Amalus Salihat. Amanu wa Amalus Salihat. There is always this interconnectedness between Iman and doing righteous. Always in the Quran. You don't find Iman mentioned without Amalus Salihat. And as Al-Hasan al-Basri tells us, one of the great scholars, one of the great tabi'een who were educated by the Sahaba, he says, الإيمان ما نطق به اللسان ووقر في القلب وصدقه العمل. Iman is what you utter by your tongue. Is it enough? No. It's rooted firmly in your heart. Is it enough? No. And what is substantiated, manifested by action. وما صدقه العمل. So when we talk about what is the legitimate and real hope, we're talking about something that we seek to achieve, and we make a living reality as opposed to a desire. We make it a living reality. When we talk about people who espouses hope, we're talking about people who have a vision, who have a firm belief, who espouse hope, who have a firm belief, and who act on that belief. They're not prisoners of their hopelessness and despair, and they make hope a road map or an actionable roadmap in their lives to achieve their objectives. Also, another thing we learn from our human experience, and we learn from the Quran, that hope eliminates when we think that despair has prevailed or dominated. أليس الصبح بقريب? Isn't dawn near? That's what the Quran says. And in the Quran, subhanAllah, we find so many examples of hope. And hope that necessitates action. Not only hope that necessitates Iman, or preconditioned on Iman, which is preconditioned on Iman, but also that is associated, linked, connected with action. I'm not going to go through every single example in the Quran, but I just want to remind us of one example without going into the details, because I know we don't have a lot of time. But everyone knows the story of Yaqub alayhi salatu wassalam, right? Yaqub was blessed with 12 sons. 10 of them were from one mother, and the youngest 2 were from another mother, from another wife. Yusuf and his son, younger son, Benjamin or Benjamin, according to some Israeli narrations. Now, it doesn't matter whether his name was Benjamin or not, just for the sake of argument. So Yusuf and his brother were from another wife. The other 10, the older brothers, were from the first wife. Now we know that Yusuf was unique, alayhi salatu wassalam, among all of them. He was distinguished. He was being prepared to be in the process of being a messenger of Allah, right? He's unique. He has different set of qualifications. And we know about his vision. 10 stars with the sun and the moon bowing in respect to him, right? We know that. He told his father, he told him, don't relate this to your brothers, because he was worried that their envy will lead them to harm him. We know that they were noticing also that he's special and he's distinguished, and their father, because of his qualifications, because of his manners, he was given prominence. Not because Yaqub just loved him, more than he loved his other sons. He loved him because he was different than the rest of them. That's what gained him that respect and love by Yaqub alayhi salam. The brothers were noticing. So they were very happy about it. So they conspired against him. They thought of killing him. But then they ended up deciding that they're going to cast him down in a pit, right? We know the story. He was taken as a slave. When he was saved by a caravan, he was taken as a slave. Then he was imprisoned because of a conspiracy, a plot by the wife of the Premier of Egypt, who took him as a slave, and then they raised him as a son. He was taken as a prisoner. He ended up leaving the prison and became the Premier of Egypt, Premier of Egypt. Now, I don't want to go through every detail, because I know everyone knows the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. It's all in one surah. The only messengers whose story is in one surah, one chapter, is Yusuf alayhi salam. So he became the premier. Then there was a famine. He managed that famine in the entire region, not only in Egypt. So in Palestine, when this famine took place, they were looking for provisions in Egypt, that Yusuf prepared Egypt for it. So they go there. The brothers who went there met with Yusuf alayhi salam. They didn't recognize him, because according to some narrations, his separation from his father, since the moment that they casted him in the pit, were between 20 to 80 years. We don't know. But it was long enough that his brothers didn't recognize him. He recognized them. Now, he provided them with what they needed. They told him of their family. He said, why don't you bring me your younger brother? Because they were chatting. So don't come back without your younger brother. They come back. Now, Yaqub didn't want to send Benjamin this time. He was worried that they lied to him the first time about Yusuf, that they're going to lie to him again when they claim that Yusuf was devoured by a wolf, right? And they brought blood, fake blood on Yusuf's shirt. So he didn't trust them anymore. But they said, there is no way we give the provisions except if you send Benjamin with us, and we give you our firm and our covenant that nothing is going to harm him, except we're overpowered. So they take him. Now he was kept as a prisoner because he supposedly steal from the drinking cup of the king. We know that wasn't the case, that Yusuf wanted to keep his brother. Long story short, they go back to their father now. They've lost the younger brother now. They lost him. They didn't keep their covenant. They go to their father and they tell him, it was beyond we promised to protect him, but this is something beyond us. Your son committed thievery. That's what the punishment in Egypt, that he's kept. This is something that we cannot control. Yaqub was so devastated to the point that he lost his sight because of how much he cried. But when they delivered the devastating news to him, and he lost his sight, he wasn't only grieving over Benjamin. The way he phrased it, subhanallah, shows you that this man kept his iman in Allah and his hope that he will be united with Yusuf. So what does he say? The son that he lost decades ago. So he says, وَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ وَقَالَ يَا أَسَفَ عَلَى يُوسُف وَابْيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ فَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. So Yaqub turned his back to his sons who delivered the news to him that Jacob is gone, that Benjamin is gone, and he says, oh my sorrow over Joseph, not over Benjamin. Benjamin was just taken, but his sorrow was over Joseph. He kept that faith. Oh my sorrow over Joseph, and his eyes became white from grief, for he was of that a suppressor. Does it end there? No. He tells them after that, يا بني اذهبوا فتحسسوا من يوسف وأخيه ولا تيأسوا من روح الله إنه لا ييأس من روح الله إلا القوم الكافرون. Oh my sons, go and inquire about Joseph and his brother. Look, now Joseph supposedly was killed decades ago, but he doesn't end there for him. He kept the faith, and it's not only the faith and the hope. Go and act on this faith and hope. Go and inquire about Joseph and his brother, and never despair from the soothing mercy of Allah. Indeed, no one despairs of the soothing mercy of Allah except the disbelieving people. So he acted on that iman, and ended up that they found Joseph and his brother, and the vision of Yusuf was fulfilled, right? Based on action. Iman, hope, action. That's what we learn. أَلَيْسَ الصُّبْحُ بِقَرِيبٍ. When you think that despair has dominated, that's when al-faraj comes. That's when relief comes. But you have to keep your iman. But for those who are obsessed with forecasting failure, anticipating failure, definitely what are you going to get? Failure. Because if you decide that things are not going to work, they're not going to work because you're not going to exert efforts. What Allah teaches us, what Allah dictates to us, is you focus more on what you can do, what you should do, and what you're going to be doing, as opposed to forecasting failure in terms of the results. That's why the Prophet ﷺ tells us, مَنْ قَالَ هَلَكَ النَّاسُ فَهُوَ أَهْلَكَهُمْ وَفِي رِوَايَةٍ أَهْلَكُهُمْ. Whoever says people have perished or destroyed or ruined, it is him who caused them in one narration to fail. In another narration, he's the first to fail amongst them. Because again, what is the scope of our mission or of our responsibility? It's إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغ. You do your part. You communicate the message. Was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam or any single messenger required to guarantee the outcome of their mission? No. إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغ. Communicate, and Allah will hold people accountable. When Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was grieving himself over the rejection of his people, what did Allah tell him? أَفَأَنْتَ تُكْرِهُ النَّاسَ حَتَّى يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ فَلَا تَذْهَبْ نَفْسُكَ عَلَيْهِمْ حَسَرَاتٍ لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُصَيْطِرٍ. Do you compel people to be believers? You have no control over people, and do not grieve yourself over their rejection, because إِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغ. That's your mission. You do your best. Nuh alayhi salam did his best. How long did he stay with his people? 950 years. How many believed in Nuh alayhi salam? وَمَا آمَنَ مَعَهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. Very few believed in him. That's what the Quran tells us. Not even his wife, not even his son. He couldn't spare them. He couldn't save them. How did Allah judge Nuh? He is the first messenger of Ulil Azm, the most five resilient messengers of Allah. Because he was judged by what? By his efforts. There was nothing wrong with Nuh. The people were stubborn. He's done his best. Allah judged him based on his efforts. The best that he could have done, and he's done. Yunus alayhi salam, by contrast, left before the doom struck his people after he warned them of 3 days of, gave them 3 days of notice that if you don't believe, you're going to be cursed by Allah and the severe punishment will hit you. But he left before because they hurt him more. And we're not judging Yunus alayhi salam, because the Prophet tells us no one is better than Yunus. He was telling his companions, and by extension all of us, لا يقولن أحد أنا خير من يونس ابن متى. But he was punished for leaving before he waited for the decision of Allah. He's done his best. His people were so stubborn, but they ended up believing after he left, right? He was sent back to them. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, we're judged by what? By our efforts. Now, pass forward. Today, we're all following the news that are coming out of Gaza. Gaza has been subjected and is being subjected to a genocide for the past 16 months, or almost 16 months, 15 months plus. It's not over yet. In fact, Gaza has been subjected to brutality for the past, some would say 17 years since the blockade started on Gaza in 2007. Some will tell you, no, it actually started in 1967 when Gaza was occupied. Some will tell you, no, it started 107 years ago when Palestine was given as if it's a property of the UK to Israel or to the Zionist movement at the time to become a national home for them. But Gaza has been subjected and continues to be subjected to this brutality, and it's being subjected to this genocide that we've seen before our own eyes for the past 15 months plus. How many died in Gaza? The official numbers say 46 plus, about 40,000 people, out of how many? 2.2 million. How many have been injured? About 120,000. And when you say injured, many of these people have lost limbs. Many of these people are paralyzed. How much of Gaza is being destroyed? Over in 80, 85, maybe 90% of Gaza has totally been decimated. But subhanallah, after 15 months, Gaza is still vibrant, and the people of Gaza are still showing defiance and resentment, and they're maintaining their belief in Allah. Subhanallah, when you see the celebrations yesterday in the streets of Gaza, people who have almost 90% of them out of the 2.2 million have been displaced. People who are starving to death, whose children are dying in tents of cold. We're following this, right? Subhanallah, they haven't lost their iman. They're still aspiring hope, and they're still promising that they will rebuild Gaza, and they're going nowhere. But these people didn't only maintain their iman, these people acted on their iman. My question is to all of us: why so many of us are despairing on their behalf? Why many of us are willing to abandon them under the pretext that there is nothing that we can do for them? Why? We are citizens of the country that enabled and continues to enable this genocide. I think all of you have listened to the 3-4 speeches that the outgoing president has already given, claiming credit for what is happening, for the truce or the ceasefire in Gaza. And he's competing with the incoming president over who really takes credit. But if you listen to Genocide Joe, and I know some might say, oh, he's on the member and talking politics. I'm sorry, this is not politics, this is reality. And our religion does not differentiate. It's the religion of justice. And in America, this is a protected speech. Don't ever give up on your rights. Genocide Joe did not shy away from bragging about the support that he has given Israel, the weapons that caused this destruction. He continues to brag about it. You know, this is your tax money, it's my tax money, it's our tax money. You know, these weapons are sent in our names. This complicity, this complete partnership in the genocide happened as if we have consented to it. We did not. We're all American citizens, and we're responsible, we bear responsibility. And that requires from us to rise up to the challenge and not to give up on their behalf, on the behalf of the victims who were victimized in our name by our own tax money. Allah will ask us all about this. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. My dear brothers and sisters, I think this is a fact that we have all to agree on, that the people of Gaza have shown the resilience or manifested the resilience, the steadfastness, the bravery, and the iman beyond the expectations of any human being. Let's put that aside because this is not a disputed fact. Let us talk about our role. As I said just moments ago, that our nation here, our country, we're American citizens, is the number one responsible party for perpetuating this occupation, this injustice, this crime, and this genocide. Now, with a great challenge like this one, there is a greater responsibility on our shoulders. The bigger the challenge that we face in our lives, even in our personal lives, the bigger the efforts have to be, right? And the bigger the efforts that we exert, the greater opportunities and horizons that are available and open for us. I've talked in the first khutbah about the theory that was developed by the prominent historian, the renowned historian Arlen Twomey. He's a British historian. In his authoritative book in history, A Study of History, he developed a hypothesis. This hypothesis was based on him studying 26 civilizations that existed throughout human history. The reasons why they flourished, or the reasons why they vanished. And when he studied, he found that the civilizations that rose up and were successful are the ones that delivered a successful response to an existential challenge that they faced. And the civilizations that failed and were vanished are the civilizations that were unable to deliver a successful response to a challenge that they faced. That's why he called the theory the challenge and response hypothesis, نظرية التحدي والاستجابة. That's what exists in our lives, right? That's what we as human beings or any living being actually live by. It's the challenge and response. The challenge we don't get to choose, The responses is what we choose, right? Since the creation of Adam, when Iblis disobeyed Allah, refused to bow down to him, and he threatened, issued his wicked threat after Allah gave him a respite, that he's going to misguide us, right? لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ قَالَ رَبِّ بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. Right? That's his wicked threat. But he acknowledged his limitations. قال إلا عبادك منهم المخلصين. Except your sincere servants who defy me. And Allah told him, that is the pathway forward. إن عبادي ليس لك عليهم سلطان. My servants, sincere servants, you have no authority over them. Except those who what? Who are receptive to your temptation. To your fitna. Now, do we commit mistakes? Of course. Do we commit sins? Of course. Do we deviate? Of course. But we always go back to the right path and we defy Iblis. My dear brothers and sisters, the same thing. The choice is ours now. How we respond to the challenges now. Let us say, inshallah, this is what we want, that this ceasefire holds. This is not the end for the people of Gaza. Justice has to be addressed. Criminals have to be held accountable, including our own here in America. The reconstruction of Gaza, delivering humanitarian aid, ensuring that the Palestinian people have control over their future and destiny, and Gaza is not shaped based on what the Israelis want, based on what the Americans want, based on what the accomplices in the Arab world want. It's based on what the people of Palestine want. This is our role. We've given so far about $24 billion in terms of destruction, called weapons, to Israel. People have to know, have to understand their responsibility, and have to understand what are the horizons. Because we see a shift in America in terms of public opinion, generational shift in terms of in relation to Palestine/Israel. We see a shift in America in terms of the discourse, and we see the potential. For those who have lost hope, I'm telling you, the picture is not as grim as many of us think. But in order to translate these shifts that we see in America into policies, there has to be a bridge. And the bridge is our efforts. I came from Washington, D.C. to, inshallah, be in your community today and tomorrow. Tomorrow there is, inshallah, a lecture after Maghrib. And I encourage every one of you to attend the lecture in the gymnasium, inshallah, after Maghrib, to speak about our role and the way forward, what is expected from us, what needs to be done. I'm the executive director of American Muslims for Palestine and its C4 organization, advocacy organization of American Muslims for Palestine, Americans for Justice in Palestine Action, to speak about the work that not AMP, AGP, JVP, Jewish Voices for Peace, and other organizations are doing for justice in Palestine, because there is an intersectional movement for Palestine in America. But what our collective role to talk about these dynamics, and I encourage every one of you to come tomorrow. Consider it as part of your efforts, as part of your debt to your brothers and sisters in Gaza, because our tax money, despite our will, have fueled and funded and continues to fuel and fund this genocide against them. So when we stand before Allah, oh Allah, I have done my best, and we truly have done our best. So inshallah, I encourage all of you to be here tomorrow after Maghrib to attend this conversation. All of us are part of it. And we have a table outside for those who want to know more about the organization. Please make it a priority. We shouldn't feel exoneration that this is, inshallah, hopefully will be concluded with the relief that we're looking for. We have to be prepared to prevent another genocide or the resumption, although it is still ongoing. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الظلمة والظالمين اللهم من أراد بهذا الدين خيرا فوفقه إلى كل خير ومن أراد به غير ذلك فخذه أخذ عزيز مقتدر. We ask Allah to descend His mercy upon our brothers and sisters in Gaza, to give them patience, perseverance and victory. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to descend His mercy upon all of those who espouse justice and stand for justice and stand against injustice. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to descend His mercy upon our brothers and sisters in Syria, in Kashmir, in Sudan, in Myanmar and the Uyghur Muslims, and to make us among His tools that bring relief and faraj, inshaAllah, hope to all of the oppressed people, whether here at home or worldwide. All of us, my dear brothers and sisters, have a role. No one should discount themselves. وأنت يا أخي أقم الصلاة.